Hey, and we're back. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from beautiful downtown Blue Ridge, Georgia. We broadcast every Friday morning from Blue Jeans Pizza. October, come on up in the North Georgia mountains and check out the leaves, the changing of the leaves, and all of our fall festivals, from the Arts in the Park here in Blue Ridge to the Apple Festival down in Ellijay. Joining me now is Congressman Doug Collins. And what we're going to do this morning, folks, you know, we have, we're going to take the filter off, okay? We have so many news outlets, we'll just call them that, news outlets that have so many filters of what's really going on in Congress. So we're glad to be joined by Congressman Doug Collins. We want to give him an opportunity to tell us what work is really going on in the House of Representatives. Congressman Collins, welcome this morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Brian. It's always good to talk to you.
Let's do just that. Let me just open the door and you tell us some of the things that are actually happening in Congress that we don't get to hear through the media that's actually taking place on the floor. Could you share a couple things that's going on with us?
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest things is, you know, and I've went through some of these before. I think the interesting thing is I'm drawing a distinct line when we talk about Congress and we talk about the House and the Senate. I've decided that it's time to just sort of, you know, you said unfiltered. I'm going to pull off the gloves a little bit.
Okay.
The House is working. The Senate is paralyzed. And the House over this past year has passed all 12. We just this past month passed all 12 appropriations bills. We had not done that since 2006. That meant that there's a conservative appropriations process, went through the House and went to the Senate. Now, I'm going to also tell you something also interesting. The Senate has not even taken up one appropriations bill, and they've been in session as long as we have. We go back almost 2.5 months ago when the press were salivating over Comey going to Capitol Hill to talk about some investigation or what he did or didn't say to the president.
Hey, wait, whoa, I'm not going to interrupt you, but let me see if I can pass this test. On that day, we repealed Dodd-Frank. Did I pass?
Exactly.
Thank you. I just wanted to check, Congress. I didn't mean to be rude.
I'm glad you got to know. I mean, because we've been talking about it. I guess what I'm trying to say is in the House, we passed sanctuary city bills. We've passed, you know, issues with fixing the VA. In fact, the president has signed one of the biggest reformations of the VA structural hiring practices. This did get through the House and the Senate, and the president actually signed it. And yet, I don't see the president getting credit for signing. I don't see the Congress. What we're seeing right now is a lot of things that are going on in working toward getting the regulatory burdens dropped down. We took 14 CRAs over this past year. We have done almost, and I think the president, vice president, I was at the White House just the other day, the vice president said that was $8 billion in compliance costs that have been cut away. We're seeing, you know, the things that now are starting with tax reform, which is exciting to see. But again, what you see so many times is this grouping together of things that are being chased by press and others in Washington, D.C., because really, as I told one of the press meetings the other day, you're in an alternate universe up here. You're not understanding that what's going on out in most of our districts, where the people are wanting to see the president succeed, they're wanting to see our country succeed, because they believe first and foremost that they're Americans. And that's something that I think is missing in this conversation a lot of times.
Well, you know, I appreciate it, and again, I apologize for being rude. I just wanted to just to insert that while Comey was the headline of the day, Dodd-Frank and our community banks were also a headline on the floor. And I appreciate that. I thank you. Now, you have pulled back, and I said Congress, and just for those at home, Congress is the Senate and the House. But you know, I'm gonna go with not to go down this road with Steve Bannon, but I watched a Charlie Rose interview, and he was very his comments concerning obstruction with the Senate, and then when he was asked about the House and Speaker Ryan, he said not so much. He said not so much, and it seems to be that most people are understanding the logjam per se with appropriation bills and so many other things is over in the Senate.
Well, it is the Shane, and even even Sean Hannity the other day. Paul Ryan went on with Sean, and after a few minutes, if you go back and catch the clip, Sean had to finally admit, he said, "You're right. The House is doing it." So I think, and I'm not trying to throw blame here, but I just want it to be clear that, especially from from conservative values in Northeast Georgia, these are the kind of things we're fighting for. We're trying to work with a president who is trying to move an agenda forward. He is, looking at and was elected on a conservative platform that said, government's too large. Government is too intrusive. It is something that we need to work on and get, back into proper perspective. So I think from the perspective of what we're looking at and saying, as we move forward is what is the best for, the folks who get up every day and, the first thing in their thought processes is not what's going on in Washington, D.C. The thing that we've got to focus on, I think, is getting an economy growing, getting the regulatory burden off so that they can get up, go to work, drop the kids off, earn a better paycheck, expand their business, go home, watch a football game tonight, do the things that most Americans do without worrying about what is going on in Washington, D.C. And that's the way it ought to be, that Washington has the best interest of the constituents at heart. We can disagree on what that is, but that ought to be the very burden that is on Congress. And so I'm proud of what the House has done. I'm frustrated with what the Senate has not done, but also at times what they have done. They put a Supreme Court justice who will be there for many years that I think will uphold conservative values that we have fought for. And I think that's one of the biggest election differences last year was the Supreme Court. So we're seeing positive change there. I think at a certain point in time, we just need to continue, to do what matters the most. And I can't always stop without saying something about our district staff. And sometimes we always talk about bills and we talk about, passage of laws and those kind of things. But also I want to say for the things in Northeast Georgia that we're fighting for, I mean, we've got a broadband company, Windstream, a telephone company, that is absolutely just discrediting itself with its customers. I mean, I've got customers in Habersham County and White County and some other places that have been told it'll be the end of October before they get phone or internet service back. There are people in Puerto Rico who are getting power back before my folks in these areas are getting their internet and phone service back. We've been fighting hard to say, what are you doing with the federal dollars and what are you doing with your response? We're dealing with the Corps of Engineers. We're dealing with VA issues. Those are the kind of things at the end of the day I think make a huge difference.
Well, Congressman, I'm glad you brought up Windstream, and that's why we love to have you on the show because, yes, there's that big Washington, D.C. that, and there's that big country out there, but I like to stay a little focused on North Georgia, so I'm glad you brought that up because I know you have been working for several years trying to, let's just say, make some corrections where internet service and providers are concerned, especially Windstream in your district. So I'm glad you brought that up. Let me move. Go ahead, sir.
And I just want to interject there, Brian. Not only are we pointing out the problems, which we've done for almost 4 years, we've also introduced a bill which the SEC chairman, Chairman Pye, is touting all over the country called the Gigabyte Opportunity Act that encourages companies and states to streamline opportunities for investment to be made into areas like ours in the 9th District where they can get tax deferrals, they can get same-year deductions on expenditures, and go into areas that are not being served right now and provide some competition. And I think that's a good thing. So we're not only saying, here's what's bad, we're saying here's a solution as well.
Congressman, we've got about 3 minutes, so let me ask you some pretty pointed questions. Cost-sharing reduction. We're going to hear all day how the executive order that the president signed yesterday concerning starting to dismantle Obamacare, the cost-sharing reduction payments. But the media passes over that actually the courts said that these payments are illegal, correct? Because the House did not appropriate this money. Am I correct?
That is exactly right. In fact, I helped in that a little bit in the House early on as we were doing some oversight investigation, and that was actually a lawsuit brought by the former Speaker, John Boehner, in which we won. These payments were illegal. They were spending off book. So, I mean, they can say whatever they want to. This is another screw-up of the Obama administration.
Well, does this pass? Does this, what happened yesterday with the president starting to dismantle Obamacare, does this push health care back in? I know the House, you guys passed something, you put it before the president, you sent it over to the Senate, and it failed. And that's just the bottom line.
Yep.
But does this push that back to the surface that now you have to do something, not just the House?
Yeah, Brian, it does. But I'm also never one to blow sunshine where sunshine's not appropriate. It concerns me. I believe it's fairly proper. I think what you're going to hear, though, from everybody is that you're hurting people, you're doing this, and the administration may get that blowback. But we've got Republicans and also Democrats in other part of the country that seemingly, and I mean, the Senate was proof of that, and I've got some in the House as well, that are willing to say, you know, look, we couldn't do it, so let's just band-aid or throw more money at this, and then actually try to pass something that way through leverage. So my concern is, yes, it's going to force this debate back on the table. My concern is that we're going to have to fight extra hard when the debate comes back to do something like we did in the House, and not just some knee-jerk reaction to kick more money at something because they'll put people up who are being harmed. Obamacare has harmed the national economy. Let's quit always talking about those that you know that are in a position of they may get hurt in this. It's hurt our country, and I think I want to fix it to make our healthcare system productive for everybody.
From the House side, will we get tax reform? Will tax reform?
Yes.
From the House side, we will get the tax reform bill. And obviously, you can't speak for the Senate, but how comfortable do you feel this year getting a tax reform bill on the president's desk?
I feel very comfortable. In fact, I think it has been it's the top priority of us in leadership. It is the top priority of the speaker. In fact, the speaker put us on notice yesterday that he would keep us through Christmas or any other holiday to get it done this year. It was very disturbing to see some of the members of the Senate already saying, well, you know, we got to negotiate. It may be the first of the year. No, it's time to get behind the American people, get behind this president, and pass tax reform. It's way past due.
Okay, the immigration, the 17-point, I think it was, plan that the president put out last Sunday night, DACA, just in general, where do you stand on what he put out?
I think he gave us a lot of stuff that we've been asking for a long time. I think it just shows that if the Democrats want to oppose this, they're actually opposing security. They're actually opposing, you know, some stuff that I think most Americans want. DACA needs to be fixed, Brian. This is not an issue that, you know, we can't. And I've said this before. I made this comment for the last 5 years. There's not enough buses just to send everybody back, but there's also not a path to amnesty that we just need to go to simply because we don't have an answer. The president laid out a framework. My hope is that that's what we're going to deal with in the Congress to fix this when he properly put it back into Congress where it belongs, not in an executive order. So that my hope is that we're going to see a balance on security and proper immigration response that will deal with these DACA recipients.
Okay, we got 30 seconds. I always ask this only for one reason, Congressman. The media, many in the media, the national media, like to spend their day seeing if they could separate you, your colleagues, the Senate from the president, always trying to create a conflict with the president. So can you say this morning you still support President Donald Trump?
Always have. And
I know. I gotta ask.
We're constantly.
I just want to give you a chance to say, because you never know when you're going to make the list with one of the other networks of the person that may have said something. Oh. And just to make sure, you know, I'm always listening, Congressman. We got to fix the leak in the wall, the pipe, before we grab the mop, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's exactly it. That's what I've said many times before. See, the lessons are being taken.
Yeah, I'm always listening, Congressman. Hey, listen, you have a nice day. We appreciate you coming on and sharing what's really going on the floor. And thank you so much, and enjoy your day best you can in D.C., okay? But we thank you.
Yeah, well, you take care. Y'all have a great day in Blue Ridge, okay?
All right, thank you. Congressman Doug Collins, the 9th Congressional District here in North Georgia. We're going to take a break, and right after these messages, it's time for the All-Star Panel with Rick and Bruce. Take us to break.